Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take you sources, we unpack them, and we try to pull out the most vital nuggets of knowledge for you. Today, we're peeling back the layers on the current political scene. We've got high-stakes legal battles really shaking things up, and some surprising shifts in elections, too, things that could signal big changes. Our mission, as always, is to cut through all that noise, connect some dots, and give you the essential insights, make you feel informed.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating mix of material we have today. It really shows how things you wouldn't expect to be linked actually are. We'll be sort of connecting threads between, executive power, who gets appointed to courts, what the public is thinking, and even the real nitty-gritty of campaign strategy. What's striking, I think, is just the sheer breadth of challenges and power plays all happening at once.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Our sources kick off with this political firestorm brewing right at the top. The Epstein files fallout. It's intensifying. We're hearing POTS is, well, absolutely furious. What's the core issue the sources are pointing to here?
Well, the central thing is this contradiction, right? Donald Trump ran promising to release all the Epstein files, every last one, but now he's reportedly doing everything he possibly can to block their release. And this isn't just, a minor policy shift. For his base, who were really expecting these files to nail top Democrats, it feels like a profound betrayal.
A betrayal.
Yeah, Sarah Longwell's focus groups really underline this. For a lot of Trump voters who distrust both parties, seeing Trump as this outsider, someone who wouldn't lie, that was crucial. So this perceived dishonesty on something so charged, it's kind of unforgivable for some of them.
So he's scrambling to tamp this down then. What are the strategies? What are they trying to do to contain this? And is any of it actually working?
Well, the tactics seem to be a lot of deflection, blaming staff. He's apparently showing real fury, even at allies like Steve Bannon, Laura Loomer, even Rupert Murdoch over that Wall Street Journal story about a birthday card to Epstein.
Right, I remember that story.
Yeah, so it's not just frustration. It seems like a desperate attempt to control a narrative that's just spiraling. It's actually eroding trust, even with his loyalists. It shows the limits of his power over information. Honestly, everything he tries just seems to throw more gasoline on the fire.
But then this twist, this idea of bringing Ghislaine Maxwell into it, that really changes the game, doesn't it? What's the thinking there? Why her? Why now? What could they possibly hope to achieve?
This is where it gets incredibly tricky. Deputy AG Todd Blanche, who used to be one of Trump's personal lawyers,
Right.
He did a complete 180. Just 2 weeks ago, he's saying no reason to talk to Maxwell. Now, suddenly, he says there is a reason. So that immediately raises questions. First, why the sudden change? Why now?
Yeah.
Maxwell's testified twice already in civil cases, denied a big sex trafficking operation, and the DOJ, they already have, thousands of documents, over 100,000 pages. 1,000 FBI agents apparently went through them to take Trump's name out before release.
1,000 agent, just for that.
Seems so. So it's really unclear what new bombshell she could possibly drop now. Second, what's in it for her? She's not going to cooperate without something huge in return.
Makes sense.
There's two main options, really. A Rule 35 motion, that's a sentence reduction if she cooperates, or a pardon or commutation.
Yeah.
The Rule 35 thing needs a judge's approval. And getting that for Maxwell, politically, that's a huge hurdle, especially from judges wary of just, political optics. A pardon or commutation, that's political dynamite. Especially for Republicans who find what she did despicable. It would send his base into paroxysms of rage, as one source put it.
Wow. Even if she named Democrats.
Yeah, even then, her testimony would probably lack corroboration to be truly damaging. And crucially, there's zero trust. Maxwell doesn't trust Trump. He definitely doesn't trust her. She'd almost certainly demand a signed pardon before saying anything, which makes the whole cooperation thing incredibly complex. That deep distrust is a major block.
So it's not just the White House scrambling. Congress is getting involved, too.
Yeah.
What's driving that, and how does it mess things up for the administration?
Exactly. Representative James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, he chairs the House Oversight Committee. He's issued a subpoena for Maxwell to testify. Now, this puts Comer's goal, which seems to be mostly political grandstanding, getting headlines,
Right.
in direct conflict with Blanche's goal, which seems to be putting out the fire, damage control. A federal judge has to approve Comer's subpoena. And it's really unclear if Blanche, the deputy AG, would support it or fight it. That's a fascinating internal clash right there.
And besides Maxwell, are there other things Trump's trying? Other avenues?
Yeah, he tried something else, tried to get grand jury transcripts released from back in the mid-2000s. But a Florida judge, Robin Rosenberg, shot that down pretty pointedly, too. She said, basically, Making the president's base happy isn't one of the valid reasons under the rules for releasing secret grand jury stuff.
Ouch. So that's a dead end.
Completely. And then you have Jeffrey Epstein's own brother, Mark Epstein, telling CNN that Trump and Jeffrey were very close, good friends, said Trump was often in Epstein's office. And a former model, Stacey Williams, echoed that, said they were best friends. These directly contradict Trump's whole "I barely knew the guy" line.
Right. Undercuts his claims significantly.
And maybe the most damaging thing, there's this 2016 deposition video that's gone viral now. It shows Epstein admitting, yeah, he and Trump were friends. But then, crucially, when asked if they socialized together with underage females, he pleads the Fifth and the Sixth and 14th Amendments, too.
He pleads the Fifth on that question.
Yes. Which, people often see that as a very strong sign someone fears their answer could incriminate them.
So while all this is swirling around the administration, what are the Democrats doing? How are they reacting?
Well, Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, sent a letter. Apparently, he sent it to the wrong place first. Should have gone to AG Merrick Garland, but yeah. Anyway, it had 7 recommendations to follow the money on Epstein's finances. Things like investigating wire transfers, payments to people like Leon Black, any Russian bank ties, whether the big banks followed anti-money laundering laws. So focusing on the financial angles.
Okay. Following the money trail.
And then this just came across our desk, a really surprising late-breaking thing. The House Oversight Subcommittee on Federal Law Enforcement, they held a surprise vote to subpoena the Epstein files themselves.
The actual files.
Yes, and it passed 8-2. With 3 Republicans, Nancy Mace, Scott Perry, Brian Jack, voting with the Democrats.
Wow. 3 Republicans broke ranks on that.
Yeah, which means the subpoena must be issued immediately. This could potentially set up a situation where Trump defies a Congress controlled by his own party. It's instantly drawing comparisons to, Nixon's final days during Watergate.
Okay, quite a development there. Let's shift gears slightly to the broader political stage. Democrats seem to be walking a bit of a tightrope with a potential government shutdown looming. What's the struggle there?
Right, so the government shuts down if there's no funding bill by October 1st. That's the deadline. Republicans need Democratic votes in the Senate to get past a filibuster, so they need to make a deal. The dilemma for Democrats is, well, their base really wants them to fight to show, Republicans can't govern. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, his instinct is always to avoid that Democrats in disarray headline. That narrative can hurt them. So it's a balancing act.
What makes this funding fight particularly tough for Democrats this time? Is there something specific?
A huge sticking point is this recent thing called the rescissions bill. Basically, it allows the White House to retroactively cancel money Congress already approved and allocated.
Wait, they can just undo spending Congress voted for.
That's the fear, yes. As Senator Angus King put it kind of colorfully, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Democrats are really wary now. They don't want to agree to funding deals just to have the money pulled back later by the president, so they want a written promise against future rescissions and something called impoundment. That's when the executive just refuses to spend money Congress allocated. They're pushing hard for Congress, not the White House, to really control the purse strings. Though there is apparently still some internal fuzziness among Democrats on exactly what policy duties, as they call them, they want in return for their votes. Okay. Now let's talk about this judicial nomination. Emil Bove, he's being called Trump's new hatchet man. That's strong language. What's his story? Why is this nomination so significant?
Emil Bove, yeah. He was Trump's number 2 lawyer in that New York case, the Cooking the Books one.
Where Trump was convicted.
Right, convicted on 34 counts. Now, Bove's been nominated to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, a very important court. He's seen as an absolute loyalist. Sources say he already proved this by being the key player in a deal to reportedly pressure NYC Mayor Eric Adams about rounding up migrants. He even apparently swore the administration would just ignore court orders in a specific deportation case involving someone named Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Ignore court orders.
That's the report. Our sources suggest his loyalty is purely to Trump, not really to the Constitution or the law itself. Chuck Schumer called him the extreme of the extreme of the extreme. Dick Durbin said Bove used his DOJ job to weaponize the Department of Justice against the president's enemies.
Strong words from Senate leadership.
Very strong. And it's not just them. Over 75 former judges plus 900 former DOJ lawyers sent letters saying he's unfit for a judgeship. Despite all that, his nomination squeaked through the committee stage 50-48. Only one Republican, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, voted no. Susan Collins voted yes procedurally, but says she'll vote no on the final confirmation.
That's remarkable party loyalty, given that level of opposition. So what's the speculation? What does this mean for the Supreme Court?
Well, it immediately raises the question, right? Is MOV being positioned, being groomed for a future Supreme Court spot? Speculation is focusing on Justices Alito and Thomas possibly retiring. Alito, he's an extreme conservative. He'd likely want to retire while Trump is president and Republicans control the Senate. He might fear a Democratic Senate taking over in January 2027 would block any conservative replacement he'd favor.
Okay, that makes sense strategically for Alito. What about Thomas?
Thomas also likely wants Trump to pick his successor, but he has another factor playing in. He wants to break the record for the longest-serving justice held by William Douglas. He hit that record in May 2028. So for Thomas, it's a complicated gamble. Loyalty to the party versus his own personal legacy.
A real dilemma.
Yeah. So Alito seems the more likely one to go first, which makes Bov a potential, albeit incredibly controversial, nominee for that seat. It just highlights how even at the very top court, personal ambitions, party loyalty, timing, it's all this complex, almost theatrical dance.
Speaking of legal fights, our sources point out this really interesting contrast. Big law caved, but little law didn't.
What does that mean? What's it telling us about the current legal environment?
It's a fascinating dynamic. What it means is over the last 6 months or so, many huge, well-known law firms, big law, they've chosen to do free legal work, pro bono work, for clients Trump basically picked for them.
Right.
Why? Often it was to avoid trouble, like getting their lawyers' security clearances pulled or being banned from federal property.
So essentially pressure tactics worked on them.
It seems so. They basically caved. They likely calculated that fighting these things, even if they knew they'd probably win in court eventually, would cost too much money and risk their business, so they complied to protect their bottom line. Okay, so if big law stepped back, who is stepping up? This is where it gets really interesting, right?
It really is. It's the smaller firms, the solo lawyers. They're the ones who aren't intimidated, apparently. They've formed what some are calling a virtual army to challenge the administration, often working for free through groups like Lawyers for Good Government. We're seeing examples like over 80 lawyers volunteering 20 hours a week each for just one case.
80 lawyers. Wow.
Yeah, and individuals, too. Michael Ansel, he's a solo lawyer in New Jersey. He's taking cases where Trump refused to pay government contracts that the previous Biden administration signed, focusing on, due process being denied. There are over 400 suits like that pending.
400, just on unpaid contracts.
Seems so. Then there's the Pro Bono Litigation Corps, a smaller nonprofit. They're leading the charge on immigration cases. Their leader basically said, look, if every immigrant with a U.S.-born baby has to sue for citizenship, we're happy to create an army of lawyers to do it. And the small firms are backing up the bigger ones, too. When a big firm, Perkins Coie, sued the DOJ, 504 small firms signed on to a friend of the court brief supporting them. Compare that to only 8 of the top 100 biggest firms in the country.
That's a stark difference, and there's some powerful personal stories behind this, too.
Absolutely. Really inspiring ones. Karen Burgess, she's a commercial litigator. She volunteered to help her old university, Rice, after Trump attacked their DEI program, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Heidi Berkiewicz, she specializes in federal employment law. She's taking cases for government employees who were illegally fired. She said, I have 3 daughters. When this is all said and done, I need to look them in the face and know I did everything I could.
Powerful motivation.
It really is. These stories show it's often a deep moral, professional commitment driving this. It's decentralized. And, Abby Lowell, he's a pretty famous lawyer working with Norman Eisen's Democracy Defenders Fund. He put it nicely. He said the administration boasted about flooding the zone with their actions, but it turns out the legal community is flooding the zone, and they're the ones that can't keep up. So this contrast, it shows this really powerful sort of grassroots legal resistance emerging outside those big corporate law structures. It shows how the current climate isn't just a political fight, it's actually reshaping how legal advocacy happens, often driven by individual conscience.
Okay, finally, let's turn to a key election we're watching closely, the Virginia governor's race, often seen as a big bellwether for national politics. What's the latest from there?
Yeah, this is definitely the biggest bellwether race this year. You've got Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, facing Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears, the Republican. And frankly, for the Republicans, it's looking like a bit of a disaster right now. Earl Sears is getting crushed in the polls, trailing by 12 points in the latest one. And the trend has been consistently going Spanberger's way.
12 points is a big gap. And the campaign itself is struggling too.
It really seems to be. Fundraising tells a story. Spanberger's raised $27 million, still has $15 million cash on hand. Earl Sears raised $11 million, only has $4 million left in the bank. That's a huge disparity.
Right.
And she's already fired her campaign manager. That's never a good sign.
No, usually not.
Republican strategists are getting really worried. They fear her, quote, lackluster campaign and just the whole narrative that she's going to lose badly. They worry it could actually depress Republican turnout across the board, which could then drag down their candidates for lieutenant governor and attorney general, too. The whole ticket suffers.
So what does this mean for Governor Youngkin? He's got potential presidential ambitions for 2028, right? What are the implications for him?
That's the big question for him, isn't it? Some Republican strategists are apparently urging him, take over her campaign, fix this. But he might actually prefer to stay out of it strategically. Right. Getting too closely tied to what's looking more and more like a sinking ship, that could really tarnish his own brand, his reputation for his future ambitions.
Right. You don't want the headline, Youngkin took over his successor's campaign and she got crushed anyway.
Exactly. That's not exactly a great recommendation for a presidential run. So if he does stay out, which seems possible, Earl Sears is increasingly looking like, well, a lost cause for the Republicans this cycle. You know, what we've really dug into today just demonstrates this incredibly intricate dance, doesn't it? Between the legal challenges, the political moves, public opinion, from the very highest offices down to what individual lawyers or voters decide to do, every single piece seems connected. It influences the next move in ways you don't always expect.
Yeah, this deep dive, I think it's shown us not just the headlines, but those underlying currents, the flows of power, the points of resistance. It shows where this system is maybe bending and where it's actually holding firm.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider as you process all this. In a world where information and accusations just fly around so fast, how much do those individual commitments, whether it's to a legal principle, an ethical stand, or even a political promise, how much do those ultimately shape what happens? And what does that tell us about where power really lies?
That's it for this deep dive. We really hope this exploration gives you some new perspective on these complex stories playing out all around us.